everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a review on the Derwent Tinted Charcoal Pencils. So let me go ahead and open this up and just give you a little look at the actual pencils. Oh, that's way overexposed now, isn't it? Oh, cameras, they're just a whole thing. Anyway, so this is what your pencil is going to look like. It's just a typical Derwent looking pencil, nice thick barrel. Their signature kind of color caps on the ends. It says Derwent Tinted Charcoal, England, the color name, and then a code number. Although you should know right off the bat that these pencils are not available open stock. So that's kind of a little downer. But I've been working with these pencils for quite some time. I'm ready to give a full and comprehensive review. We're going to talk about some Lightfast information. We're going to talk about how they perform. I do have a drawing that I completed with these. I filmed the process, so you're going to be seeing pictures of that as well as some footage of me making the drawing as we go along. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to keep it out for this review, so it's already been wrapped up, so you're going to see footage of it, however, and I'm very happy with how the little bunnies charcoal drawing came out. So we're going to talk about the characteristics and the quality, and I'm going to give a nice review. So if all that sounds good, then go ahead and give me a thumbs up and keep right on watching. All right, so I have some notes off to the side, so don't be alarmed if you hear like the rustling of paper off to the side, because that's what that is. And I would like to give you a little sneak peek at next week's review. I got my hands on some Liquitex acrylic gouache. I already filmed this, so subscribe so you won't miss that. Let's jump right into these tinted charcoal pencils. So the very first thing that I wanted to mention is that there are currently two versions of these. The new version, which it's not like brand new, but here they are. See this tin? This is important because if you go into an art store and there's some older stock floating around with the mushroom tin or the mushroom blister packaging, they're not the same pencils we're talking about today. That's the older version. The new generation have improved significantly in areas of light fastness and workability, and I could show you some of the old light fast charts. These are significantly better. Okay, so they've been reformulated and they're also a bit softer now, I think. So the first thing I want to show you is kind of just go over generally the color palette here. I've got them all swatched out. And you can see that with the exception of these three colors here, sand, burnt orange, and sunset pink, they're warmer, right? If I cover them up though with my hand, you can see that the rest of the color palette is incredibly cool and also very dark and undersaturated. So when you cover up those three colors, the rest of the palette is going to be very dark and very cold. A lot of like deep blues and greens and violets and near blacks and grays. So this isn't really too much of an issue as it is personal preference, in that a typical like drawing set of like charcoals or pastels, tinted whatever, you would usually see warmer kind of muted neutrals. And I wanted to bring out my Derwent drawing pencils, just a quick swatch of that. I feel like this color palette is so much more balanced, you know, like we're not getting any of these warm earths, red sepia, Venetian reds, terracottas, brown ochre, like none of that here. So if you were looking for like burnt siennas and like doing a sepia kind of grayscale, it's really not here for you. I also wanted to compare these to my Derwent pastel pencils in similar shades down here, because in case you already had pastel pencils and you were wondering, well, what's the difference? And do I need these if I already have the pastel pencils? And I think the answer really is no. If you already have pastel pencils, in fact, I kind of put together from the Derwent pastel pencil collection, I'll go over this a little bit later, just some colors I thought would group well together in a limited set that would be balanced and kind of give you the same feel, but may even improve upon the idea. Now, one of the differences, unfortunately, there is a little difference between tinted charcoal and pastel pencils, is that the tinted charcoal is going to be a bit more transparent in nature. You can see here the white particularly is very transparent. So it's good for mixing, but not for good, bold, punchy white highlights. And I compared their white charcoal pencil to the General's white charcoal pencil here. You can see just how much more opaque the General's is. And that's just the way it is. Now here I did some gradients, some blending. I took Sunset Pink and mixed it with white. A blue here, I think I used Mountain Blue. Here I used several colors together. I think I used lavender, Sunset Pink, burnt orange, sand. You can see how pretty they are, but it does give kind of a watercolor almost look. I tried to make a green and by combining two colors, and I did this a lot in my drawing on the little clovers because there's really no green here, obviously. So I mixed the sand, which is kind of a yellow ochre, and that mountain blue, and I was able to get kind of a green in between. I think the general idea with this really is that you would do quick sketches and quick drawings, and I didn't really want to spend a lot of time on that rabbit, but unfortunately I ended up spending more time on it than I think I really wanted to. And one of the reasons is, if you take a look at this, you squint your eyes and you take a look at this, everything here is very similar in value. I mean, really similar in value. We've got a lot of very dark tones, and you have white, which represents your lightest value, but it's not very opaque. There's not really a lot of midtones to anchor and bridge the gap. And that transparent white is going to be an issue if you like to work on dark papers or tinted papers. So I feel like, for me and how I like to work at least, I feel like I couldn't take this set along with me and feel like I had everything that I needed. I enjoyed combining these as an underlayer, sprayed it with fixative, and then in some places perhaps going over with the drawing pencils because they're nice and opaque, and I could use those to bring in more details and get more variety of value. But everything I think that you create with this is going to end up with that very kind of dark, saturated, sort of sunken in, gloomy look because of just how dark of a color palette that we're looking at here. Now they are water soluble. I wanted to show you that on the scrap paper here. I just took some random colors and splashed them with water, and you could see, and once you do that, they don't move. They create a nice sheer, almost watercolor wash. That's not to say they're anything close to watercolor pencils, so please don't misunderstand me. But you can do a wash with these like you can with traditional charcoal. So that's good to know if you like to do that kind of technique and then come over top. I found that to be very helpful. So the new pencils, I say new, but they probably made this switch a few years ago, but I still do see some of the old stock with the mushrooms floating around. Their light fastness was all over the place, and it was quite low on almost everything, which was an issue because how charcoal can't be light fast, it was a mystery to a lot of people. But they brought them back, and with the new look, they reformulated and they are better now. So let's take a look. Sand is an 8, and by the way, they're going on the blue wool scale. So it goes from 0 to 8. Anything above 6 is considered to be light fast and is good for professional work, is suitable for professional artwork. So sand is an 8, burnt orange is an 8, sunset pink is an 8, glowing embers is a 5, heather mist is a 4, burnt embers is a 7, lavender is a 6, thistle is a 6, bilberry is an 8, elderberry is an 8, mountain blue 8, ocean deep 8, and again that means the highest. Slate is an 8, forest pine is a 7, green moss is a 5, dark moss is a 6, driftwood is 6, peat I believe was a 6, burnt earth is a 6, natural is an 8, white is an 8, and then here's where things get sketchy. They're traditional charcoals, light, medium, and dark. Light is a 1, so that's awful. I don't know how that's even possible. Derwent should be ashamed of that. I'm sorry, but I don't sugarcoat anything on my channel. Medium is a 2. How? How, Derwent? And then dark is a 6, which is still kind of close in my opinion. Now, I had their original charcoal pencils, light, medium, and dark, and I found them to be really hard, really scratchy, and the fact that they weren't light fast was a deal breaker for me. But these new ones in this tin are significantly softer, smoother, and better to work with. However, the light fastness is unacceptable here. I mean, how, Derwent, how? How are your, this should be your workhorse right here. These colors should be light fast. This is why I tend to prefer, and I steer people toward the Faber-Castell charcoal. They are richer, more saturated, smooth, and they're light fast. So I always steer people toward those for charcoals. With the exception of these, though, almost everything here is usable for professional artwork, with the exception of the heather mist. I'm sorry, not the Heather Mist, the Glowing Embers. Let's see, what else? Yeah, I mean, pretty much like, is it Heather Mist? That's, okay, I'm sorry. Heather Mist is the 4, okay, so not that one. And of course, these ones over here. But almost everything else here is suitable. So that's good. That's very, very good to know. However, if you are a professional artist who you just wanted to pick up the colors that you knew were light fast, or say you run out of a color, you want to replenish it, there is no open stock. None. That's really a shame. I mean, really, really a shame because, you know, I actually really like these pencils. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to say everything about them is great and perfect because I never do that. But, you know, there are pros and cons to everything, but I will say I would love to repurchase Sunset Pink when it runs out. The sand, the burnt orange, the lavender, the thistle. These are colors I actually really enjoyed working with, maybe the forest pine. But you can't. You can't. The best you could do is you buy a smaller set, and they're quite pricey. So a set of 12 is going to run you around just under $23 at the time of filming, and a set of 24 comes in at $45.41. So these are not cheap. These are not cheap. They are considerably pricey. So here in the Derwent pastel pencils, I wanted to take some of the popular colors here and show you, like, if you had the pastel pencils from Derwent, which colors would be most comparable, how they would perform. Some of them came pretty close, like tan, burnt ochre, very similar to sand, and burnt orange. Dioxazine and purple to thistle. These are more vibrant, certainly, but very similar. Green oxide to green moss. Indigo to bilberry, very similar. And I think you really could use what you have. You know, use pastel pencils if you already have them. Use the charcoal pencils that you already have. I don't feel like you must have these, but I do enjoy them. I was disappointed somewhat in the color selection. I have to say that considering there's no open stock, and we're dealing with kind of a limited amount of pencils, there seem to be a lot of near duplicate colors. So here I swatched them out again on this this drawing paper, which is pure white, and I wanted to show you, I circled the ones that are kind of near duplicates. So you can see how these 4 here, I put them next to their buddies, they're super close. These 2 blues, really close. These 2 blues, really close. All 4 of these are kind of close. So you've got, and even those 2 are kind of close. So you've got a lot of that are really very close, you know, very similar to one another. I feel like this whole section here, from driftwood over, and even the dark moss, like these are all, you could use all these very interchangeably, very intermixably. They're just so similar that, you know, if you ran out of, you know, driftwood, you could easily sub that in with burnt earth or something like that, or even burnt embers. Lavender, thistle and lavender could really sub in for one another. You know, I mean, you've got a lot of very similar shades. Ocean Deep and Slate, I mean, they're you know, you're not going to notice a huge difference one to another. I wish they had incorporated more warm tones, like I said, I mean, for a drawing set. So here I grabbed some of my Derwent pastel pencils to put together a set that I would like to see in the future, something that I thought would make a little bit more sense. I'd love to see like the raw umber and the burnt earth, and like, you know, a sepia, true sepia tone, and, you know, a little bit more balanced, warm and cool. There's anything beside, like if you cover up these 3, everything here looks to be very samey, very similar in tone, in value. So it was difficult. It was a little bit of a challenge to get just the look that I wanted. Now, I will say these pencils, I'm going to show you the tin again. I don't know why. The camera goes absolutely crazy whenever it has to focus on black objects, but I did that whole large drawing, and I did a lot of swatches with these, and I did a lot of experimentation with these, and I think the only color I had to sharpen was white and maybe this mountain blue, but they wear down incredibly slowly. So a little does go a long way. Their cores are, they're definitely harder than a pastel pencil, but I don't want you to think that they're hard, you know. But they they last. They really do last. Now it's too dark. Unbelievable. My camera is just, it has a mind of its own. But the quality here is actually quite good. I feel like the only thing that I struggled with is because they're transparent, which charcoal should be transparent. I had to adjust my technique quite a bit, and I do feel like you need to sub this white out. You'll want to have something more opaque than that because it's so transparent. You'll almost certainly want to add something like a Derwent Chinese white, a drawing pencil in Chinese white, or even just a nice opaque white pastel pencil if you want to keep the feel of everything very consistent. But this isn't, I don't think this is going to satisfy you, this white. All right, so I just wanted to add a couple more thoughts about these. So they did respond very well to fixative. If it got to a point, for the demonstration, I used Arches cotton drawing paper in the cream option. That matters because the cream has more texture than the white variation of that paper. But I used, like I said, the cream cotton drawing paper from Arches, and if it got to a point where I wasn't able to layer anymore, I could add some fixative and then come back and layer more. I did notice that because of the transparent nature of these pencils, at times the fixative did have a tendency to make the pencils a little bit more transparent, so that's something to look out for. It might not react the same to all fixatives. I also feel like these pencils would perform their best, their absolute best, on pastel matte paper, or even a surface that had some golden fine pumice gel or pastel ground applied to it. Anything with just a very small amount of grit or bite that would really grab the charcoal and make the most out of those pigments. I think they'd be a little bit more opaque on that surface as well. However, I think that probably exceeds the boundary of how much most people want to spend on a charcoal drawing. I could be wrong, but I feel like most people, when they think of charcoals, they're thinking about a sketching medium, a quick drawing medium. It's probably more money than they want to invest to use pastel matte paper. But again, a good alternative would be, for this purpose, maybe a little bit of golden fine pumice gel or pastel ground applied to the substrate of your choice. I also found that the brush and pencil textured fixative spray worked as a base layer, helped to grab these a little bit better. I wouldn't use powder blender though with these, and I really don't think that the titanium white touch-up texture would work well for this at all either on top. Overall, I do have to say that I was very pleased with how this drawing came out. I thought it looked very illustrative and fresh. I didn't overwork the drawing. I did spend more time on it than I really intended because everything here in this set is so close in value and so undersaturated. I had to work harder to get the blends and the effects and the colors that I wanted, and I had to work a little bit harder to get that change in value. So for example, like if I wanted kind of a lighter gray, I'd have to blend with my white to get that. Or if I wanted kind of a lighter blue or like a lighter violet, I had to blend with my white. You're going to use that white up because, you know, everything is kind of that dark, desaturated tone with very few exceptions, and then you're going to have to blend to get your medium tones. Unless, of course, you're working on a mid-tone paper to begin with, like Strathmore Tinted, what is that, mixed media, or like their gray, their tone sketch paper. You know, that's an option as well, but I like to work usually on like a cream surface is my preferred. But even on gray paper, I think you're going to have to mix and blend a little bit more to get that better variation in value, because everything's kind of hanging out. A lot of what's in here, with very few exceptions, kind of hanging out on the darker end of the value scale, in that kind of muted, murky, subdued kind of place. But of course, I think that's the vibe of this set. I think that's what they were going for. You know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just want to make you aware of the limitations of such a medium so that you know what to expect. You're not trying to get more out of it, or, you know, you're not expecting it to be something that it's not, and then feeling disappointed when you can't get the result that you may have in mind. You see what I'm saying? It's always best to work with the medium that you have and understand it, rather than trying to make it do something that's not capable of doing. And in this instance, this just was not, you know, capable of you know, a lot of those lighter, brighter tones, or warm brown earth tones. You know, like if I wanted a brown bunny, in a lot of the spots that look brown on my drawing, I had to take that burnt orange and mix it with like burnt embers, for example, or some of the darker, like warmer grays, because there just was no brown. So I had to do a lot more mixing than really I was prepared to do, really I wanted to do. But again, it is an option. Alright, so at the very end of this video, I wanted to kind of offer you some alternatives in things you might already have. So the first thing that I would suggest is for a more cheap, I don't want to say cheap, but like a more budget-friendly option, I try the General's charcoal or pastel pencils, I'm sorry. The General pastel pencils are pretty affordable. You can get them pretty cheap most places, or go into Michael's with a coupon. And they have, a lot of theirs are like muted, subdued kind of tones. Also, what you already have in your collection, you probably already have a set of charcoals. The General's makes a great charcoal pencil. I don't know about the light fastness of it though, but I used it all up. I loved their charcoals. They sharpened great. They were very rich. I wish I knew about the light fast information. I'm sorry, I don't. But if you already have the Derwent set of pastel pencils, I went through and I kind of picked out some of these colors. Now, I'm not going to say this is exactly the same thing. I feel like this is a little bit more balanced, what I have here. So this is more of like, if you take off the violet, you know, this is more of like your classic kind of drawing set up here. You've got yellow ochre, tan, raw umber, brown earth, terracotta, burnt ochre. And then I wanted to have fun with some of those grays. So I've got like French gray, dark, seal, graphite gray, carbon black, give you some of those gray options like what this set has. Indigo, Sanjuian, dark Sanjuian there. Forgive me if I just butchered the name of that. Some muted kind of subdued greens. We've got green oxide and dark olive. It's still very, very muted and desaturated there. We've got like Venetian red, burnt carmine. So I feel like, and then of course with the violet oxide, you've got something that's very balanced here. Still very classic, kind of will give you that same feel, but with what you already have. And these are going to be more opaque because they're pastel pencils, and they will probably have a bit more dust. All right, so I just wanted to offer you that. I think these sharpened very well, like pretty much every Derwent pencil I've ever had. I've never really had breakage issues with Derwent like I have with like Cough Cough Prismacolor. All of my cores seem very well centered. The quality of the pencil is quite good. I'm very disappointed that there's no open stock. I'm also very disappointed that our basic kind of VIPs of the collection, which would be your light, medium, and dark, these are your standard charcoals, are not light fast. Like, that's an unforgivable sin right there. Like, not to get mean, but how is Derwent, I know, can do better. How? Alright, so I know I had a little fun, poking fun at some of the things that were wrong with the pencils. Maybe not wrong, but things I view as cons to the pencils. I do want to say, overall, I do recommend these. If you could get these for a good price, I think that you would have fun with them, keeping in mind the limitations of them and the things that I've already mentioned as potential cons. But the pros were that I felt like it was a very freeing, expressive medium for me. If I could just show you, like, they're not, as I said, they're transparent, but that doesn't mean there's a lack of pigmentation. There absolutely is pigment. They're just transparent, which is, you know, how charcoals are supposed to be. They're smudgeable, and when you smudge and blend them out, that's when you start to get, you know, really start to see the undertone of some of those colors. They're like a medium soft, I would say, in terms of texture. I was impressed with how slowly they wore down. I used a lot of these, you guys. I feel like I used them a lot. I did a big drawing. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but that was big. That was quite a large drawing. I believe that was 12 by 18 inches. And I also did a ton of swatches. And I barely had to sharpen anything. Like, they wear down really slowly, but they don't feel hard. They're not giving me wrist pain or anything like that. I wish there was open stock availability, but you know, what can you do? Overall, I think they're a lot of fun, and if you keep in mind some of the things I said, I think that you really will enjoy them. So let me know down below in the comment section, have you tried these? Do you have them, and what do you think of them? Because I think they really are a lot of fun. I'll definitely get more use out of them. But I'm not sure that I would repurchase, to be completely honest, only because no open stock availability, and I wouldn't want to repurchase all these again. Like, I don't need 5 near duplicates here. I mean, they look so close, and for my regular charcoals, I don't use Derwent because of this slight fast issue. They could do better on that, to be completely honest. So that is my review. I'm going to leave it there. I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, if you found it helpful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. If you have any thoughts on these, let me know down below in the comment section. I am pleased with how the drawing came out. I do like them, but I think there's room for improvement. Alright, that's it for me for today. As always, have a great day, have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!